Hey, good morning, Beth. Good morning, Susie. To answer the question, there's supposed to be music, and I'm playing music, and I'm echoing, but apparently my camera has decided that we're not going to have music today. So I got to turn this down for a second. Oh my goodness. Technology is just one of those things. Let me turn this down. Good morning to Osman as well. And good morning to Sheila. I believe Sheila is from the beautiful state of California. And welcome to Emma as well. And now that I've shut the music off, I hope that my audio has cleaned up. If I can get some feedback from folks as to whether or not you can hear me okay, I hope you can. Sheila is in Idaho. Idaho, okay. My mistake. Sorry about that. Idaho is a cool state too, though. When I was working with General Motors many, many moons ago with their educational programs, and I would partner with colleges and high schools and all of that, blah, 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 and I would teach them how to do marketing and stuff like that. One of the schools that I visited regularly, and I loved the students there, was Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I believe that is. Yeah. Welcome to Jonathan as well, it looks like. I think that's Jonathan. Yeah. So let me get some lights on and I'll get these cool, funky party lights off. But I wanted to start with a little bit of festivity, and apparently you couldn't hear the music. So I was dancing to nothing, but I could hear the music over here. So I'm not totally losing it. I'm not totally losing it. All right, this is lights out. So this is a big deal to me, and that's why you may have noticed that I actually dressed up for the occasion today, and I've got on this tuxedo shirt that was sent to me by Emma from the great state of Florida. And whenever there's a special occasion, I get dudded up, put on my fancy tuxedo shirt, and we're ready to have a pate. We're ready to have a good time together. And today's a fun day because we get to find out finally who won that custom painted featherweight that I'm giving away from the workshop. And again, if you're just seeing this for the first time and you don't know what I'm talking about, it has a lot to do with these celebrities on the board over here. I decided to come up with a contest this time. Let me get a quick drink of water, wet my whistle. I decided to come up with a contest this time that involves celebrities. And what the potential authors of the creative piece had to decide is who's going to be on their team. And we had a pretty small group of entries, but a fantastic group of entries when it came to what they ended up presenting to myself and the judges. It really was a tough pick. It was a very, very tough pick trying to decide which one would win. In fact, each of the essays, and this doesn't happen all the time, each of the essays, each of the creative writing pieces ended up winning at least one vote from a judge. And that's a big deal because we've had other contest giveaways that I've done where one of the particular creative writing pieces didn't get a single number one vote from any of the judges. It might have come in second, it might have come in third as a pick of one of the judges, because what I asked the judges to do and it's easier said than done, is I asked them to read the creative writing pieces we got. I almost said essay again. I asked them to read the creative writing pieces that we got and pick basically 1, 2, 3. 1 is their first pick, 2 is their second pick, 3 is their third pick. And then I had to go through and compile all of those numbers. And I guess the point I'm trying to say is each of the folks that entered the contest at least got 1 vote by one of the judges as a number 1 pick. And that says a lot to me about the quality of the writing that these authors presented. Let me tell you the authors' names, and then we'll kind of get into, I'm actually going to be calling 2 of the authors and inviting them to read their creative piece during this live stream. I couldn't reach one of them. I sent an email out to all the 3 folks that entered the contest. I got a response from 2. The other one I haven't heard from. So hopefully that individual is okay. So again, let me rewind a little bit here. Let me first of all acknowledge my judges. My judges are part of my leadership team. They're my inner circle. And let me say this, that I count on them. I rely on them a lot. And I want to acknowledge them first and foremost for the time that they contribute, the generosity of their talent, and also the amount of time that they devoted specifically to this contest to read and reread these essays that we received. And that starts with Emma, Bill O. Bill O is Bill O'Rourke from Florida. Hardly needs an introduction. Sunny, Veronica, Christine, Michelle, and myself. So that was our judging panel. We had a good selection of judges from a diverse background. All of them love VSM, obviously, but they also have very different backgrounds. You know, some that are in the medical field, some that are former choir directors, some that are in business and all over the place, some that are serving the medical field as a pharmacist. So we really had a nice span of judges to look at these writing pieces objectively and come up with their picks. Now, as far as the authors, author number 1 that I'll mention because I couldn't get in contact with her, and I'm actually going to be reading her creative writing piece myself since I couldn't reach her, is Nancy Hansen. And she wrote a really clever piece called Silver Threads and Golden Needles. Silver Threads and Golden Needles. And if any of you are country and Western fans, or if you grew up on country and Western music like I did, you know that title, Silver Threads and Golden Needles, is actually a song title that was written back in the 1950s. Written way back in the 1950s as a country and Western song. It was sung by iconic singers like Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, and also Linda Ronstadt also sang that particular song entitled Silver Threads and Golden Needles. So I was really intrigued, and I'm sure the judges were as well if they follow country and Western music at all, when I saw that particular title for this particular creative writing piece that I will read for you during this live stream today. Our next author is Sheila Kilgore. Sheila Kilgore, I thought she was from California. Duh. She's actually from Idaho. And I saw that she's in the live stream today. And I'm going to be giving Sheila a call shortly so she can read her creative writing piece. She got kind of excited and nervous when we were talking by email yesterday. She says, I've got to print it off. So I'm ready. And so I'm going to invite Sheila to read her beautiful piece. And it didn't actually have a title per se. It was titled something like Cow Country Creative Writing something, but I ended up titling it Clarissa because the main character in her writing piece is a little girl by the name of Clarissa. And I'm not going to tell you anything more. I'll let Sheila talk about that and also share the details of what inspired her to write what she wrote and maybe a little bit more about this character that she developed in this very, very good writing piece. And my final and last but not least, and she is in the live streams all the time, and I also added her to the leadership team but I had to exclude her as a judge because she ended up deciding to write a creative writing piece entitled Newsflash. And it's none other than Susie. And Susie, I'm not going to try to say your last name because I'll probably goof it up. But Susie is in the live chat as well. She's got that little wrench next to her name. So you can look at her last name and then you can say, Scott, that was so easy to pronounce. Why didn't you say it? So let me pick up the phone and give Sheila a call first because she's got a little bit of a schedule she has to work with. She's also 2 hours earlier than us. So it's only about going on 8 o'clock her time right now, and invite her to read her creative writing piece again entitled, I'm calling it Clarissa. Clarissa. So hang on a second. Let me see if I can get her on the phone. Oh, and good morning to Bill as well. I don't know if there's anybody else that I missed. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody else, but I might have. All right, hang on a second. I've got to hit the right buttons here. Gumdrops. I think I just closed something I needed opened. Hold on a second. I will find her name. I know I will. Okay, I'm calling Sheila now. So hang on a second. It's ringing. And I'm going to hold the phone over by the camera so that you can hear her, hopefully.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, is this Sheila?
It is.
And I'm going to ask you to talk almost like you're yelling at me just so everyone can hear you easily enough. Okay. So talk a little bit about this story that you wrote that has this character of Clarissa. And also, I'm going to ask everyone in the audience, as Sheila is talking, let me know if you have any trouble hearing her, okay? Or if you have any trouble hearing me, but I'm going to hold the phone really, really close to the camera. I have no idea where the microphone is on this camera, but hopefully you'll be able to hear her okay. And I'm just going to check my volume again to make sure I've got it cranked all the way up. I do. Okay, so Sheila, talk about this story that you came up with this character of Clarissa, and then just jump right into reading the story for us, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, Clarissa is a real little girl, and in my story, she's 6 years old, which she is, and she's my oldest granddaughter who just discovered sewing.
Oh, really? Okay.
She is very excited about sewing, and I have a Singer Featherweight that she is learning to sew on, just like I taught her mommy to sew on. And that's just very, very dear to my heart. It makes me so happy that I get to experience this in my life. So I wanted to include that in my story. And also, I just love old sewing machines and collect them, not in a way that I buy very valuable machines, but I find machines that really speak to me and polish them up and use them.
Okay. How many machines do you have right now?
Oh, I have about 12.
12 machines. That's a good collection. You get one more, you'll have a baker's dozen. So Clarissa is a real little girl that inspired you. You've taught her mother. You've now are teaching your granddaughter the love of sewing, and you're also getting her excited as well about probably specifically vintage sewing machines, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, share your story with us, would you? And again, speak in an exaggerated fashion, loud enough so that everyone can hear you. Real quick feedback in the live chat. If someone could please type, either Emma or whoever wants to be the fastest with their fingers, with what Sheila just shared, are you having any trouble hearing her? If you are, I'll ask her to get really angry and start shouting really loud. All right. I'm going to look. Actually, Sheila, you can probably see the live chat closer than I can. The laptop is a distance away. Let me know what folks are saying if they can hear you okay.
It appears they can hear fine.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead and share your story about Clarissa, would you please?
Okay. 6-year-old Clarissa sat near the window next to her grandmother in a cabin in the Northwoods. Outside, the snow was lightly falling. Clarissa was excited to participate in another sewing lesson, and I, her grandmother, was beaming with emotion to be able to come to this moment in my life. I have sewn since I was her age, and thankfully, good quality vintage sewing machines have always been a part of that experience. As we sat there, each of us with a beautiful sewing machine in front of us, I reflected on my history with sewing. I received my first sewing machine for Christmas when I was 6 years old. My mother sewed, and she had bought me a toy sewing machine from the Sears catalog. I was so excited and remember wanting to sew anything that I could. Of course, I had no prior sewing experience, so I mostly put little scraps of fabric, right sides together, stitched 3 sides, turned it right side out, and called it a pouch. That experience was short-lived as the sewing machine was plastic and the thread kept falling up. My mother returned that sewing machine and took the money to the antique store, where she found a Singer Model 20 chain stitch machine. I love that little machine. I love the sound that it made as the needle went up and down through the fabric. I loved to crank the handle and to learn to stop with the needle up or down, depending whether I was finished with the seam or was going to lift the presser foot to turn a corner. I loved getting little scraps of fabric left over from my mother's projects. I sewed tiny clothes and accessories for all of the dolls and stuffed animals. Those days were pure, ignorant sewing fun. I knew nothing of proper construction and technique. When I was 12, I took a home economics class in school. When we got to the sewing portion of the class, I learned to use an electric sewing machine. Something awakened inside me. I felt creative, powerful, free. In class, we sewed a log cabin quilt block and made it into a pillow. At home, I talked my mother into teaching me how to use her sewing machine. I sewed log cabin quilt blocks every spare minute I could. The sewing machine would mess up the family television, so I would sit there and prepare everything so I could sew while the commercials were on. Everyone we knew had a log cabin pillow on their sofa. In home ec, we moved on to sewing an apron, where I gained skills and confidence to try a sundress. The dress turned out great, and I discovered that I could sew anything by carefully following the pattern directions. I spent all of my babysitting money on fabric and all of my free time sewing my own clothes. This passion was noticed by my aunt, who had a degree in home economics. She gave me her FAF 1222, which was my main sewing machine for most of my life. Here I sat, teaching my granddaughter proper sewing technique and construction methods. I have taught many people to sew, including my 5 daughters and the many 4-H sewing students over the years. But nothing has fulfilled this passion of mine like my present student. My thoughts were interrupted by Clarissa, who I could tell was admiring the perfectly restored, shiny red Singer Featherweight that she was lovingly stitching doll clothes on. "Grandma, please tell me about all of your sewing machines," she said. I indicated the shelf behind us and replied, "Those machines are all special to me. They are all beautiful to me, like art, and they have had a special place in my life. That tiny one on the top shelf with the hand crank is a Singer Model 20. It was my first sewing machine when I was your age. We will get it down for you to use next time you come over. The next one is my FAF 1222. My aunt, Grampy's sister, gave that to me when I was 12, and I sewed on it for many years. The cam's cracked in 2021, and I cannot find anyone who can repair it, so it is retired for now. That cute little black machine that looks like the one you are sewing on right now is a Singer Featherweight 221. It is the very first thing that I bought on eBay when eBay first started. Your mommy and all of the aunties learned to sew on that machine, and many other little girls as well. The cute little machine next to it is a Singer 99. I took the motor off and converted it to a hand crank. That machine is the very cutest to me, and it is relaxing to sew on. It reminds me of sewing when I was very little. The green machine is an Elna Supermatic that used to belong to my grandma. It is a nice machine, and we will get it down sometime so you can see how the knee control works. The other green machine next to Great Grandma's is a Singer 185K that was given to me. It is cute, but it is broken when I received it, and I could never figure out how to get it working. The big black machine on the bottom shelf is my Singer 201-2 Centennial. I bought it for $50 and fixed it up so that it sews beautifully. It is what I use instead of my FAF 1222 now. Clarissa asked, Grandma, how come it isn't as pretty as the others? It is old and has been used a lot. Someday I plan to repaint it, I replied. I pointed to a table against the sidewall. See that table over there? That is my Singer 66 red-eye treadle. Ever since I first saw one of those, I wanted one. I decided to sell the dishes that my grandmother gave me and never used to buy that machine. I used to sew dresses for your mommy and the aunties on that machine. At this point, I paused, and Clarissa, feeling that she wouldn't learn about the other shelf of beautiful machines, said, Grandma, what about the sewing machines on that shelf? Knowing that her little mind wasn't ready for the details, I simply stated, those are the new Singer sewing machines that are still being made today. Lots of people believe that the good old sewing machines are nicer than the modern ones, so they got together and started making them again, just exactly the same as they were first made a very long time ago, before I was born. That top row are the Model 66s in the Sphinx, Lotus, and Red Eye decals. The second row are the Featherweights, the 221 like you are sewing on, and the 222 like I am sewing on. The next row are the 99s and the 185. The big machine is the 201, and next to it is a 201Z, which is a modern version with a built-in zigzag. The bottom row has a 301 and the 3 different versions of the Model 20s that are currently being made. Wow, Grandma, Clarissa said, that's a lot of sewing machines. How did you get all of those new ones? Well, I was one of the people who thought the old machines were really cool and helped them make them available again, I told her. Part of the company, so I get to have a lot of sewing machines. I hope I get to have a lot of sewing machines too, Clarissa said. They are really pretty. I will teach people to sew on them like you do, Grandma. That would be very nice, I said. As we sewed on in silence, I reflected on how the new company had come to be. It started with a creative writing contest that Scott Geller had sponsored. The contest brought out an idea that many had thought throughout the years, but that no one dared to voice out loud because of the impossibility. Many lovers of the good old singers were able to get together, purchase the rights, assemble the technology, and set up production of original quality sewing machines. Because of the coming together of many, the social impacts of this new company were far greater than any could have known. After I got over the shock of winning the creative writing contest, Scott, the judges, and I met together with some of the other leading Singer fans and experts to discuss the possibility of obtaining the rights and setting up a factory to manufacture some of the older Singer models. Most of us went into the meeting thinking that it would be really neat, but impossible. Something magical happened at that meeting. There was so much knowledge, talent, and enthusiasm present across a wide spectrum of business and sewing knowledge that we all left believing that it could happen. We formed a corporation with 25 board members. Alex Askaroff is the chairman of the board. Scott, Bill, Sunny, Paula, Emma, Veronica, Michelle, and I are members. We also have Dave McCallum, Nancy Johnson-Strebro, Don Bissell, Daryl Kaiser, Charlene Phillips, Connie McCaffrey, Darlene Grayton, Carmen and April Henry, Sophie, Countess of Wessex, Miss Singer, and a few other passionate Singer fans. First order of business was to see if we could even obtain the rights to Singer. The current company wasn't interested at first, without us coming to the table with millions of dollars. That is where our celebrity board members really helped. Countess Sophie, along with the full backing of Her Majesty, was able to convince them that they were making no money off of the old Singer line and that it had great value in the present time for humanitarian efforts worldwide. Miss Singer was able to reinforce this with her vintage charm, assuring them that the new company would not compete with their current offerings. On the contrary, the new company would produce quality products which would reinforce their brand name. When all was said and done, our new company, Singer Sewing Inc., owned the rights to reproduce, manufacture, and distribute all technology related to sewing, which was in current manufacture during and prior to 1959. We could exactly reproduce sewing machines, attachments, accessories, parts, and furniture. We could also create new products as long as they related to the vintage products and technology and did not compete with the modern plastic machines. There was quite a lot of discussion concerning which machines to reproduce and in what order. In fact, that is an ongoing discussion at every board meeting. It was unanimous that the Featherweight 221 would be first, closely followed by the 222. At Her Majesty's insistence, Countess Sophie campaigned for the immediate production of the 201-2 for her humanitarian project. That was followed by the 66, which was desirable to the collector for its beautiful decals, as well as the original blue-black paint model for charitable organizations to use in their occupational training programs. It was a unanimous decision by the board that every machine produced would be held to the original quality standards, with most of the original production methods used, only changing in a few instances where original blueprints could not be found or modern methods produced a superior product. When I first had the idea, I thought that the factory should be in Elizabethport, New Jersey. This proved to be impractical. The original factory site was not available, and the state was not best, corporate tax-wise. Surprisingly, the British involved all championed the case for reopening the Kilbowie-Clydebank factory. With heavy backing by the Crown, we were able to make that happen. Her Majesty, the Queen, took pride in the Singer sewing machines of yesteryear and had fond personal memories of how these great machines supported the war effort. It turned out that there were still many former employees of that Singer factory living nearby who proved very valuable indeed to setting up tooling and production. The chairman of the board also was nearby and able to oversee the entire setup from start to production. The board is currently in the planning stages of an American factory, but is looking at another state to build an integrated, self-sufficient plant producing everything needed to supply sewing machines. South Dakota and Wyoming are possibilities being considered. Funding for this entire project came about in an interesting way. Due to the connections of the board members themselves, the rights were able to be negotiated on a royalty basis for units produced, and all of the connections necessary to find the documentation and resources were readily tracked and procured. With all of the groundwork done and a solid business plan, we were able to go to Shark Tank. Scott, Countess Sophie, and I were the ones to go. It was fun, but nerve-wracking. I let each shark sew on a quality vintage Singer and gave a brief presentation of the durable construction of the machines. Scott presented the business side of the deal, and the Countess spoke about her charities and how millions of people could benefit from a new livelihood that these machines would provide. The sharks were all interested, and most were nostalgic as they could remember a loved one sewing on a similar machine. Business was business, though, so they each dropped out one by one, until Lori and Barbara were left. Lori wouldn't do the deal unless we would sell it on television, and that wasn't our business model, so she was out. Barbara didn't want to do the deal on her own, so that was it. No deal. I was so heartbroken that we had gotten so far and now we were done. The truth is that we were far from done. Once word got out about what we were trying to do, because of our Shark Tank appearance, the general public went giddy with the idea. We were soon flooded with encouragement, offers, and a plan. The entire project ended up being crowdfunded by pre-orders. All of the pre-orders were shipped directly to the customer. Meanwhile, we set up the distribution process with the good old-fashioned Singer store model. I really visualize the stores being set up like they are in the old advertisements. Times just didn't allow for that. The first distributors were factory-trained sales and repair shops. For the most part, they consisted of the many people who were already making their living servicing and supporting the old machines. The board developed a program whereby businesses could become a Singer sewing dealer. They were all taught the concept of showtime, which all of the board members practiced in their own lives. There were sales, support, service, and supplies to be found at these shops. But in no case were these chain stores. These were individual, independent businesses with a personal human interface. These shops offered the standard classes, but they also offered so much more, which was completely unforeseen. There was a sewing space where the lonely older people who sewed and socialized connected with kids who learned to sew in school and wanted to go further, so hung out at the Singer store after school. There were kids who were brought off the streets and taught valuable skills. There were curious professionals who wanted to know what the excitement was about. Relationships were forged, friendships were made, lives were changed, and society became a better place. The dealership sold the machines, but they also sold all of the original attachments. You could get things like the penguin walking foot and spare hooks for your vintage needle threader. Every single part was interchangeable between the new and vintage machines. Miss Singer traveled around to the Singer stores and spread her contagious enthusiasm to all. Soon, every town of any size had a Singer sewing center. People were sewing their own clothes and other textiles. Mills were opening to keep up with the demand for fabric and thread. People who knew how to sew were teaching those who didn't. Creativity was awakened and community was once again alive and well. We had been sewing for quite some time when Clarissa broke the silence by saying, "Grandma, the machines we are sewing on right now." "Well, the pretty red featherweight that you are using is an original that was completely restored by Scott Geller. He sponsored a contest that started the whole new company that makes the old Singers again. The blue featherweight that I am using is a 222. It is a new one that the new company makes. The new ones come in the original colors and several pretty new colors. Grandma, can I meet Mr. Geller so I can tell him how much I like to sew on the red featherweight and how happy I am that the good old machines are being made again?" "Yes, Clarissa, I do think that might be possible."
Well done. Well done. Well, I don't know if anyone agrees, but I didn't give Sheila a lot of preparation time to get ready to read that story in its entirety. And as you can tell, it is I didn't put any limits. I said a minimum of, I think, 500 words and then no cap on the number. So it gave the authors more freedom to share their story. And you just did a brilliant job of reading that and really giving people an impression of that. And the answer is absolutely yes. I would love to meet Clarissa. I think that would be a lot of fun. So, well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our call, and I'm going to give Susie a quick call over in Minnesota and invite her to share her story. And then the last story I'll read is by Nancy, who I couldn't get a response from. I sent her an email like I did you and Susie, and I'll read her story. And then I will move into announcing the winner of the contest. I'll keep you guys kind of waiting a little bit if that's okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, Sheila. Thanks so much. Take care. Yep.
Okay.
Bye. So that is Sheila again from the great state of Idaho, not California. And Sheila Kilgore did a brilliant job of authoring the story that I kind of retitled Clarissa, and really tells a beautiful tale of what does it mean to carry on that legacy? What does it mean to take your passion for sewing and find an avenue for sharing it with your daughter or your son or your granddaughter or your grandson, or if you don't have children, sharing it with other children or younger people that are in your circles of influence, maybe through an organization that you're a part of, maybe through church, and passing that baton on to the next generation. All of us are getting older, and eventually that light for us is going to go out, but it can be carried on through the passion that we impart to those that we come to care about and love, and we want them to fall in love with VSM just like us. And I have to say, I read the story and I totally approve of putting Alex at the helm as chairman of the board. I have the deepest respect for Alex, as most of you know, and for his beautiful wife, Yana, as well. And if I were serving on a board and he were the chairman, I would feel greatly honored to be a part of that. So let me, at any rate, blah, blah, blah. Let me move on to Susie now. Let me give Susie a quick call and invite her to share her story. It's quite a bit shorter than Sheila's. So I won't have to hold my arm up quite as long. My hand was actually going numb as I was holding my arm up with the phone near the microphone on the camera, so that you would be able to hear Sheila okay. And so yeah, hopefully Susie's all ready for the call. I kind of prepped her for it. So all right, let me give Susie a call. I better call the. I've got a couple of Susies and Susans on my phone, so I better dial the right one. Otherwise, I'm going to get somebody on the other end, and they're going to say, "Read what? Read what?" All right, let's give this a go. It's ringing. Susie hasn't picked up yet. She's keeping us in suspense. She might have to call me back.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 6-1.
Oh. Susie, I saw you in the live chat, dear. You've got to answer your phone. Assuming you gave me the right number. And I'm not going to say the number over the live stream. So I'm going to try calling you one more time. I hope Susie is ready. So I'll say that the last 4 digits of the phone number you sent me end 6963. So let me try it again. Susie, get ready with your phone, dear. Get ready with your phone. Otherwise, I'll have to read 2 stories. The beauty of a live stream. See, stuff like this happens, doesn't it? Hey, Susie.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me okay? Go ahead and just temporarily turn the volume down on your oops. She must have a bad connection area or something. Let me try calling her again. Susie, I'm trying to call you again. It disconnected. It disconnected.
Hello, I'm here.
Hey, yeah, don't move, because you might have bad reception, and I'll end up dropping the call again. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, I'm here.
Susie? Susie?
Okay. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead and turn the volume down on your computer or whatever you're watching the live stream on, just temporarily.
Yes,
just turn
I
the volume.
turned down the volume on
Okay.
the computer.
Okay, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the story you came up with, Newsflash. And I can still kind of hear an echo, so you might want to turn the volume down a little bit further on your laptop or whatever, dear. You can hear kind of that echo. Go ahead and turn it all the way down. I'll wait till you're ready.
Is that better?
I can still hear the echo. Go ahead and just turn the volume all the way down. If you are you watching the live stream on a laptop or an iPad or something?
Okay, I turned it all the way down.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's kind of like when you're calling overseas. When I was over in Germany and I would make calls, you would always hear your voice kind of echoing back, and that's kind of what you get with the live stream. So talk a little bit about the story you wrote entitled Newsflash and how you came up with it. And then let's launch into you actually reading your story, if you would, please.
I think about pets in our lives a lot when I hear stories on the news and read online. I wonder how they do when families go through hard times with groceries and our new economy. And it was just something that hits close to home because I often think about that. So that's what led into the story.
Okay. So kind of our current times where we're facing different economic challenges, the prices of gas go up and then they go down and then they go up again, and just all kinds of instability in our lives that can hit our pocketbooks. That's kind of what sparked your passion and your inspiration for the story then, if I'm hearing you right.
Correct. Yes. And oftentimes when I hear of people having a food shelf drive or a food drive for the food shelves, I will often donate a bag of dog food or a case of cat food, just because I know if a family's having trouble, the pet's having trouble. And it's just something that a family goes through.
Perfect. Well, go ahead and if you would go ahead and read your story for us. And the judges obviously have read your story. I read your story, but the others watching right now have never heard it before. So go ahead and share it with us, would you?
I would. Thank you. Newsflash, Vintage Sewing Machine Group is creating a nonprofit to feed family pets. Have you ever wondered what happens to a family pet when the family falls into hard times? What happens to the pet when the family can no longer afford food to feed themselves? Will the family surrender the pet to the Humane Society? Will the family keep the animal but not feed it in an appropriate manner? Our Vintage Sewing Machine Group wants to form a nonprofit, 503c3, to address this issue of family pets needing food. If we are going to succeed, we will need some star power or some celebrities to come on board and support and use their names to endorse it. We first contact Paul Newman. Paul has a record of creating a line of dog and cat food with ingredients actually good for your pet. Then we contact John Lemon. John has expressed in the past that animals are not to be used to make clothing or to eat as food. We will also need to find an IRS licensed tax professional. After an extensive search, we locate Scott Geller. Scott has expertise with the 503c3 tax laws and will be able to guide us through the process of obtaining the 503c3 and assisting us in preparing the 1023 application needed to obtain it. Now we need a vision statement. Feed family pets, no pet without food. And a mission statement, providing food and resources to families with pets. Our Vintage Sewing Machine Group met with Scott Geller, and he advised us on what we will need in preparation for the application. Longtime group members Emma B. and Paula volunteered to work with Paul Newman and John Lemon in creating the advertising campaigns and videos. The paperwork for the 1023 application has been completed and sent to the IRS. We are waiting for word to see if we will qualify. Many weeks pass and we finally get notice that we succeeded. We are now a 503c3 nonprofit. Now the process begins. Our media blitz is starting tomorrow. Paul Newman has created video shorts with Emma B. and Paula, which will be aired on television and on YouTube. John Lennon is doing a photo shoot with Emma B. and Paula for posters that will be made. Other group members, Sonny and Bill, are meeting with the banker to set up our accounts. Our media campaign has been a huge success and money and donations are rolling in. It's been a struggle to keep up. We just heard that Paul Newman will be donating a percentage of his pet food line profits to our organization. Paula is putting that news clip out in more media for TV and YouTube. Our Our group Vintage Sewing Machine members have made a huge difference for family pets. We are now hearing from food shelves. We are now hearing from food shelves that want to have our nonprofit group be part of the services they can point families to for help. We did it. We are now helping families with pets feed their animals. That's the end.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And well done. And I'm going to be reading the one for Nancy because I couldn't get a response from her. And I hope I do half as good as you just did, and as well as Sheila did as well. So yeah, it's challenging. I always say to folks when I'm doing live streams, when I'm doing videos and that, and I have to present a lot of things, and I have to speak, and I have to do my best to stumble through interacting with the live chat and that. Thank God for the moderators filling all those gaps that I create. But it's not easy doing public speaking. But you work as a tell me what you work as a nutritionist or something of that nature. So you must do seminars and public speaking in your job sometimes, don't you?
I am retired. My former employer was a hospital. In my retirement, I volunteer with the Master Gardeners and the U of M Extension Service here in Minnesota.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm a certified food preservation consultant. That's canning, freezing, dehydrating, all of that. And then I'm also a Master Gardener. So we're in touch with a lot of low-income folks and elderly, and food shelves seems to be a common subject. And so it's something that we encounter on a daily basis.
Yeah. So
it's wonderful to be able to interact and learn what their struggles are, because it helps the rest of the community know how they can help.
Yeah, you get people involved, and when they learn about a need through you, then all of a sudden they want to help. It's kind of
Yes.
it's kind of like I mean on a different in a different scale, a different sense, but it's kind of like the fundraisers that we've done as a cow country family. Think about us learning about 33% of the museums facing closure during the pandemic, and a number of us in our family stepped forward, and we learned about that need down in South Bend, Indiana, and we raised about $12,000 in 10 days to help them
Wow.
out. And then learning about the needs as well you talked about the love of animals and the impact that the pandemic had on humane societies across the country. So we stepped alongside the Humane Society here in Oconto County, and we raised almost $7,000. Our goal was only 5,000. We raised almost $7,000 through our cow country family. Once we learned about the need and the fact that they couldn't bring people in to look at dogs and cats and birds and everything else during the pandemic, and they still had all those bills rolling in. So we stepped alongside and we helped out. So it's good to hear you're doing good over in Minnesota as well, through your expertise as a nutritionist and also a master gardener. I've got a confession, Susie. I know nothing about gardening. I know nothing. So I might, if I get adventurous come springtime, I might reach out to you and get your wisdom on what to do with my yard. So
That would be fine.
yeah. Well,
Thanks for putting up with my being so nervous.
No, you did brilliant. I think everyone else, if you can kind of chime into the live chat and encourage Susie and Sheila, who's already read, I think these ladies did fabulous, don't you? I think they did fabulous reading their stories. So, well, Susie, I'm gonna hang up with you, and I'm gonna go ahead and get my story queued up to read on behalf of Nancy, who I hope she's okay. You know, life is always unpredictable, isn't it? And hopefully nothing happened to Nancy, because I wanted to have her share her own story. An author generally is always going to do better than I could do in trying to read it, but I'm going to bumble through it as best as I can, and share Nancy's story as well. So thank you again, Susie. I'll go ahead and let you get back to the live stream, turn your volume back up now that we don't have the echo factor anymore. And I'm going to queue up Nancy's story, and then we'll hear that last story before I make a very important announcement. Okay?
Okay, I'm going to hang up. Bye.
Bye, Susie. Thanks. Well, thank you to everybody for your patience as we go through these stories. You can only imagine, I'm going to turn my heater back on. It's kind of cold here today. You can only imagine if it takes me if it takes me a good amount of time, here, that's too high. I was trying to angle the camera up a little bit. I've got it tilted back as far as it'll go. If it takes us a while to hear these stories, if it takes, I'm scrunching way down here. If it takes us a while to have these authors share their stories, and I'm going to be sharing Nancy's story now. Can you imagine how long it took these authors to write these stories? And that again, we were at a point where it wasn't clear whether or not this contest was going to move forward, because Susie, that we just heard from, was the first one to submit her creative writing piece. I don't remember if it was Nancy or Sheila that submitted their story next, but we hovered for a while. We hovered for a while with only 2 entries. And I made it really clear that the contest was not going to move forward if we only had 2 stories. And then finally, when we got that 3rd story that came in, there was a jubilation among the judges and with myself as well, that the contest was going to move forward. Every contest is different when it comes to folks wanting to step forward and participate in it. I remember we did a contest with my dear friend from Norway, Hans Christian. Many of you remember Hans. Hans was a part of my leadership team for quite a while. And I did an interview with him as well. If you ever want to check it out and find out who this Hans guy is from Norway, just go to this YouTube channel under playlists, go to VIP interviews, and you'll see the interview that I did with Hans Christian over in Norway. I wasn't in Norway. He was in Norway. And I had a chance to interview him, just as I did with some other great folks. So you'll want to check that out. But the point is, Hans had put together, I thought, a great contest that involved a lot of history. It was pretty demanding on the part of the author as far as what they needed to do. It involved research and a number of other things. And Hans was greatly discouraged. He didn't get anyone that entered his contest. And I reminded him that's the choice of the potential author. That's the choice of the participant, whether they are willing to step forward or not. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that we got 3 great authors to step forward for this contest, because for a while it wasn't clear whether or not the contest was going to go forward. And then the disposition of that featherweight that I had set aside for this contest would be applied to something else. It would be applied either to another contest, or potentially I would just sell it and just take those proceeds and pour it back into this company, Cow Country, and do more of what we're doing. But we got that last entry. I shared that immediately with the judges, and a lot of them were like, yes, because they love reading what all of you write. And they love applying their skills, their knowledge, their expertise in evaluating these creative pieces. Again, all of them come from very different backgrounds, but they're all very, very passionate, dedicated, smart folks that love vintage sewing machines. And they love when people will pour their creativity into writing a story that involves VSM. So there you go. So let me cue up Nancy's story and see if I can read that half as well as Sheila and Susie did with their stories. Give me just a second here. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. Okay, I'm almost there. Scroll. I get a lot of emails every day. Does anyone else get a lot of emails? I was talking with Paula Noel one time, and she was talking about all the emails that she got. And she said, basically, what does your inbox look like? How many emails do you have in your inbox? I said, I've got a few. Well, how many do you have? I've got about 15,000 emails, and not all in one day, but from customer contacts, from communicating with the leadership team and other things like that. And I systematically will kind of throw some of them into archive, but a lot of them I have to go back and access them again. So it takes a while sometimes to get that inbox down to a manageable level, doesn't it? Okay, almost there. Got it loaded now. Starting to load. Okay, got it. And again, this story was written by Nancy Hansen, and it's entitled "Silver Threads and Golden Needles." Again, that title was attached to a song that was written back in the 1950s and was ultimately sung, like I said in the earlier part of the live stream. If you joined a little bit late, it was sung by a number of iconic country and western singers like Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn, I grew up on Loretta Lynn, and she just passed away this year, Loretta Lynn. And then it was also later sung by Linda Ronstadt, who really brought a lot of attention to the song. So, Silver Threads and Golden Needles Mend This Broken Heart is what the full title of Nancy's song is. So let me see if I can go to the top of the page and share this with you. Oh, I'm sorry. I got the title wrong. Let me read it again. I hadn't opened it up. I was doing it from memory. Silver Threads and Golden Needles Mend This Heart of Mine. Mend This Heart of Mine. Okay. Trying to get it opened up as big as I can so I can read it easier. Okay. So it starts out, buzz, buzz, buzz. The old-fashioned buzzer sounded and startled Anna out of her chair. It took a moment to realize it was the door buzzer. She shook herself fully awake and walked to the door and opened it to see a UPS guy. He was standing in the hall next to 3 wooden crates stacked on top of a dolly. Anna signed the receipt and he wheeled them in. Set them anywhere you see an empty space, she said as she gestured around the cluttered living room. Be careful, she added, noticing the fragile stickers and this side up arrow on the crates. Whatever they contain must be precious, she thought, curiously. Gently, he set them in the 3 relatively empty spots. She thanked him and he wheeled the dolly out of her new, very small apartment. Newly widowed, Anna found herself downsizing and selling her big house. She had needed a drastic change in her life to help her move on from her grief. Her children were all grown and fending for themselves, so they did not need her as much. Her husband had died after an illness that he had refused to acknowledge while he was alive. It had been a very painful 5 years. She needed a change, and this was the beginning. A new place to live in a new town. Anna looked at the crates to see if she could spot the person who had sent them. No name, but the address was from a place in California. The only person she knew of in California was a cousin who she had not seen in many years. This cousin was a lawyer who settled estates. How curious that he should send her these 3 mysterious crates. After finding an electric screwdriver, she gingerly started to remove each screw that held the top on the biggest crate. When the top was removed, she encountered a thick layer of foam, and under that bubble wrap, under that was an old dark black heavy metal vintage sewing machine. Anna gently and reverently removed the beautiful Singer sewing machine from the crate and set it on the table. She tried to move the flywheel to see if it would make the needle go down, but it would not budge. She also noticed some pitting on its black surface, and the electrical cord was in shreds. Anna loved sewing machines and had collected quite a few. So for her, this was a very wonderful surprise. Her exhaustion was completely forgotten as she opened the other crates to find 2 more vintage Singer sewing machines. The other machines were not as old, but very unique and wonderful. She also discovered vintage accessory boxes for the 2 newer machines. Tucked into one of the accessory boxes, she found a very old letter folded up and addressed to her great aunt Harriet. It reads as follows. I'm going to get a quick drink of water. Give me a second. It reads as follows. Dear Harriet, I wanted to write to you to thank you for your years of service to my family and Desi Lou Studios. Your costume making and helpful personality were a rare find in the movie making industry. I also wanted you to know how much I appreciated you teaching my daughter the basic skills of sewing. I feel that sewing and crafting are forms of therapy as well as handy skills for any person to learn. I would like to help you start your sewing school. I have formed a checking account in your name to get you started on buying and planning for your school. Just contact my representative when you need more funds. These 3 sewing machines are gifts to you from the studio. I know you especially loved working on the Singer 201-2, and the others were in such beautiful condition, I had to give them to you. I have also made a list of other friends who are very interested in helping you with funds for your sewing school. Please feel free to call them as you see fit. Sincerely, Lucy. I think we know who Lucy is, don't we? And based on the picture that I had up on this board, I'll digress for a second here. Lucy on this board over here, where is she? Over here. Hopefully I can do this without disconnecting us. Hold on a second. Lucy on the board over here is actually sitting behind. It looks like probably a free Westinghouse. So I'm guessing that's one of the other machines that would have been in one of those crates that was sent by her cousin, the lawyer. So at any rate, I ended with sincerely, Lucy. Anna could hardly believe her eyes. Lucille Ball had been one of the most beautiful, funniest, and talented actresses, not to mention smart businesswoman in all of Hollywood. That her great aunt Harriet had known and worked with her was astonishing. She had to sit down and process this news. Anna had known sewing and crafting had been a cherished traditional skill handed down in her family, so it made perfect sense. Now she understood why she always loved to sew and even teach others this skill. Anna had already been operating a sewing business out of her home for 30 years while her children had been growing up, maybe teaching others to sew while also continuing her business would be a way to help others and make new friends too. She stood up to look at the sewing machines again, and a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor. Picking it up, she realized that written on it was a list of names and phone numbers. Oh, she said to herself, this must be that list of interested benefactors that Lucy wrote about. All the names were only first names. She also realized that many years had passed, so most of the phone numbers would probably not be up to date. Anna spent the next few days unpacking and setting up her apartment. She had kept all of her sewing and crafting equipment and supplies. She had been collecting sewing machines for a few years just to learn how to fix them, and because she loved to sew on all types. She set the oldest one that she had received from her Aunt Abby on her workbench. It badly needed restoration work done on it, and she knew of a guy who would be perfect to do the job. Mr. Scott was the guy to call. He was world renowned for not only his workmanship, but he could also tell her the history of this vintage machine. She really wished she could learn all about fixing and restoring vintage sewing machines from someone like Mr. Scott. This was a rare and highly coveted skill. She knew that this Singer Model 201-2 was one of the best straight stitching machines Singer Sewing Company had ever made. She couldn't wait to try it out and sew a beautiful garment. It was then that Anna knew that she would do something with her sewing skills in this new season of her life, not just for the purpose of making money, but because she thoroughly enjoyed sewing. Her ringing phone interrupted her daydream. "Hello," she answered. "Hello, Anna. This is your cousin Jack calling from California. How are you? And did you get the 3 crates I sent to you?" Jack asked. "Jack, how nice it is to hear your voice. I haven't spoken to you for years. Yes, I received those wonderful sewing machines. Thank you so much. How did you know I love sewing machines?" she asked warmly. "Our Aunt Harriet knew all about your sewing alterations business, and when she got sick, she made me promise to send them to you, hoping you could carry on with her sewing school plans. This is why I called you to update you on some possible people interested in helping you with funds," Jack replied. He went on giving her a few names and numbers to add to the list she already had found. She thanked him again. They caught up on info about each of their families. She hung up the phone, feeling good and determined to pursue the sewing school idea further. Anna counted her collected sewing machines. There was about 10 that worked adequately, but about 7 needed some type of repair or restoration. Her collection spanned from late 1800s to the 1900s. She loved to sew on all of them. Most women like jewelry or fancy clothes. Anna would much rather have a sewing machine and make the clothes. When she pressed the foot pedal down, it felt like driving a sports car. Sometimes she sewed too fast and had to rip out all of the stitches to make sure her project was done right. Sewing takes patience and perseverance, 2 qualities that seem to be in short supply in our fast-paced society of today. Anna felt children should be taught sewing to help them develop these 2 important qualities for any job that they might do in the future. Planning, developing, and completing a useful project like a quilt or garment is fun and rewarding. Anna thought about what the possibilities of getting up a sewing school would entail. She had already operated a sewing business out of her home for over 30 years. Her expertise was doing alterations, dressmaking, quilting, upholstery work, and repairs of all types. First on the list was to talk with her family and find out what they thought of her ideas. She liked to include her family members in her projects when possible. So she asked each one to advise her in some way in which they excelled. One of her daughters was a talented artist and agreed to paint her signs. Another was a grade school teacher and promised to give her advice on presenting lessons. A third daughter was good at organizing and using social media. Anna's son had a business degree and was good at computers and equipment purchasing. Her brother and nephew were builders and electricians. Her sister could decorate a space as if it went in the magazine. Oh my goodness. As it went in the magazine House Beautiful, and another sister was a retired tailor. Her mother was a wise woman of many skills and had taught Anna to sew. She knew she could succeed with so many wonderful helpers. Where should the store be located? Anna looked out of her window and saw the business street below her. Cars were going by constantly. She realized that below her was a store that was empty. Maybe the landlord would consider renting it to her. She would check it out. The rent being low was crucial. The very next day, she ran into her landlord and tentatively asked him if anyone had rented out the store space below her apartment. He said he had someone who was interested, but he was waiting on a background check. Anna felt disappointed, but decided to ask how much the rent was for the space. It seemed a bit high to Anna as she thanked him and continued searching for another space. A few days later, her front door buzzer went off. She opened the door to see her landlord. He asked if you rented my store space, what type of business would you run? She answered, feeling puzzled. A sewing school and alterations shop. Why do you ask? The guy's background check didn't pass, so do you still want the space? He asked. The rent was a bit too high for me, but if we could negotiate a bit, she started to say when he interrupted her. My 2 daughters are very interested in learning to sew, so I'm sure we could make a deal, he said, with a big smile on his friendly face. She smiled back and shook his hand. The location of her school would not have been more convenient. Other tasks and decisions appeared on her list. It was as if for years she had all of these ideas brewing in her mind, and now they were flowing out on paper before her eyes on the way of being accomplished. Advertising, promotion, what hours to keep, and if she needed to hire help were among more considerations. Anna's head was spinning as she was excited. There was nothing better than planning and executing a project. Problem solving was one of her favorite activities. It required all of her brain cells and was very challenging. It was like a detective solving a challenging crime or the beginning of an epic journey. In Anna's life, she had found the journey to be always more fun than the destination. She needed funding for her ideas to teach children. She did not want to have to charge much for the lessons, but bills need to be paid. She already had plenty of sewing equipment, an abundance of fabric, trims, thread, and tools. She needed sponsors and patrons that would bring in the groups to teach. Anna thought of the list of prospective supporters sent by Lucy and Jack. She started calling the phone numbers. Most were out of date to be of any help. One number from Jack got her to a lady listed as Kate. The line was answered by Kate's assistant, who wanted to know how Anna had gotten this private number. Anna quickly explained where she had found the number and why she was calling. The polite lady on the other end listened and seemed very intrigued with Anna's story. She told Anna that she would get back to her after she talked with her boss. Anna was so excited things were happening. The wheels of progress were turning, even if they were a little rusty. She waited for a return call, which did not come until almost 6 weeks later. In that time, she had found her store furniture at thrift shops. She would use all refurbished furniture in her shop. Anna loved to fix and refurbish old furniture and make it useful again. So when that return call came, she was ready for her lucky break. A person to sponsor her sewing school. Let me get another drink here, guys. Again, as long as it's taking me to read this, can you imagine how long it took Nancy to write this beautiful story, like Sheila and like Susie as well? A lady with a beautiful British accent was on the line. She said, "Hi, this is Kate Winslet. It is very nice to talk with you. Please tell me more about your idea for a sewing school." Anna somewhat nervously started telling Kate her dream to teach others the skill of sewing. Kate listened attentively. When Anna finished, the line was silent for a long moment. until Anna thought maybe they had lost connection. But then Kate spoke. Anna, I'll tell you what, if you can make me a gown for my next movie, then I will have a sample of your work to show to my studio's costume department. Their opinions will help make my decision about funding your school. Anna did not hesitate. I'll do it. What movie will you be in, and what are the measurements? Well, I will be playing a historical picture. I will be playing in a historical picture called Titanic. I will need a beautiful gown of the early 1900s style. I play an American socialite debutante who sails on a maiden voyage of the prototypical modern for its time ship. The ship is supposed to be unsinkable. The ship hits an iceberg, and I won't spoil the ending for you in case you want to see it when it comes out in theaters. You will need to recreate the gown in the photo that I send to you. After you are finished, send the garment to me, and I will ask my costume department to evaluate your work. Then we will talk again. I agree, I exclaimed with breathless enthusiasm. In the next few weeks, I received all of her measurements, a photo of the gown, and other historical information I needed to recreate Kate's costume. I did my best work sewing the dress, snapped a few pictures of it, and then I was going to send it off to Kate, but my cousin Jack happened to call me. He invited me to stay at his house and suggested I should just bring the dress out to California. My kids all pitched in and paid for my trip. I got to meet Kate and her costume department staff, who were to appraise the gown. A few weeks later, I received a letter from them that I will never forget. I framed it in my shop for all to see. Kate agreed to help me fund my sewing school. Hanging beside it is the photo of the beautiful dress I made for Kate Winslet in her most wonderful role in an epic movie. The letter was signed by all. The letter was signed by all. I keep saying all. There's no all in there. The letter was signed by the studio's entire costume department. These people I'll never forget and can't thank enough include Bill, Sonny, Paula, Emma, Veronica, Michelle, and I can't forget Christine. I thank them all for giving me a chance. Along with Mr. Scott, Lucille, and Kate, these wonderful people decided to help me with my project of a lifetime. I love them and gratefully thank them along with my wonderful family. My mother taught me to love, do my best, and never give up. Years later, I still love to look at the photo and letter in my office, on my office wall at Silver Needles Sewing School. My landlord's daughters were my first students, and in the next few years, they have decided to help me run the school. They will add their crafts such as painting lessons and weaving classes. My new adventure helped me mend my grieving heart while helping others in the process. And then at the very bottom, it reads, "This is a work of fiction for a contest. Celebrities' names are used in accordance with contest rules. The events recorded here were a dream that the real author had one night." So, after you hear, after you hear those three amazing stories, and again, I'm sure I didn't do justice to reading that story as well as Nancy could have read it. But you get an idea of what a difficult task the judges and myself had in choosing one story as the grand prize winner. Let me give me 1 second here. Oh, you guys are you guys are too kind in saying a good reading. Thank you very much. So the judges and myself, we talk a lot behind the scenes, just about our reaction and our emotional response to what authors have written. Again, all of these authors did an equally brilliant job, in my opinion. And we did go through a voting process, and we did choose a grand prize winner, and we did choose a second runner up, and we did choose a third runner up. And I'm going to announce those to you, but don't tune out after I announce it. Don't tune out after I announce the rank order that the judges and myself selected, because I've got something important to share with you. I've got something very important to share with you, and I don't want you to tune out, especially if you're one of the authors. And when I read the rank order that we chose, and again, each one of the authors by one of the judges at least once was picked as the number one grand prize winning story. I'm going to say that again. Each of the authors, their stories, at least once or more, were picked as the number one pick by one or more of the judges. Gives you an idea that it wasn't an easy cakewalk for the judges. It wasn't easy at all. It was not easy at all for us to come to the conclusions that we did. But I'm going to read it anyway. But again, hang on. I've got an important announcement. After I drop my phone. So this is what we came up with. In the third runner-up position, was the story Newsflash, written by Susie from Minnesota. And again, each one of these stories got a first place rating by one of the judges as far as their first pick for the grand prize winner. Susie got one of those at least as well. So even though she came in as a third runner-up, the judges loved what she wrote with Newsflash. In fact, she got 6 votes. Second runner-up is the story that I retitled Clarissa, CC Creative. And the author of that, again, is Sheila Kilgore from the great state of Idaho. The grand prize winner, and I actually tried to read her story as well as I could, is actually Nancy Hansen. And I have no idea where Nancy is from. But the judges and myself chose her story by rank order pick, Silver Threads and Golden Needles. So again, Nancy Hansen, grand prize winner, Silver Threads and Golden Needles. Second runner-up, Sheila Kilgore, authoring the story Clarissa. And finally, the third runner-up is Susie from the great state of Minnesota, authoring the story entitled Newsflash. So that's what we did. That's what we did as judges. And again, it wasn't easy. Ask any of the judges. If you're in the live chat right now, ask any of the judges. Was it an easy cakewalk to pick the grand prize winner and to cast their vote, to choose the second runner-up and the third runner-up? I think all of them will say in a very loud, emphatic voice, no, it wasn't. It wasn't easy at all. But here's the announcement that I have to make. And it seems appropriate that we're only a couple of weeks away from the Christmas holiday. And I recognize that we have a very diverse cow country family. We have a very diverse cow country family with people from around the world that follow my work and have decided to step alongside of us as family members and join us. And some of them may not recognize the Christmas holiday, but certainly they recognize other holidays around the holiday. But for me, at least, and for many of you, Christmas is a big deal. It's where we step forward and we offer gifts of appreciation to those that we care about and those that we love. And so as I thought about this contest, and I thought about how the possibility of this contest not even happening, hung in the balance. Let me get another drink of water. The possibility of this contest not even happening hung in the balance for a number of days. We only had 2 entries for a number of days, and it looked like the contest was not going to happen. And then finally, we got that last entry, and then the contest was a go. So as I thought about that, I thought, if any one of these authors, whether it was Nancy that the judges and myself chose as the grand prize winner, or whether it was Sheila, or whether it was Susie, if any one of them had said, my life's just too busy. My life's too busy. Or, you know what? This is too demanding. This contest is too demanding. It's too challenging. It's around the holidays. We just got through Thanksgiving. We got Christmas and the other holidays coming. I just don't have time for this. I'd love to win a featherweight, but I just don't have time. If any one of these ladies, if Nancy or Sheila or Susie had said that, the contest would not have happened. It would not have happened. And we would not be celebrating the outcome of this contest today at this live stream. So what I decided to do after a lot of thought, a lot of reflection, the judges don't even know about this, is I decided to pull an Oprah and say that every author is going to get a featherweight. Every author that entered the contest is going to get a featherweight. Now, the difference being Nancy, who was chosen by the judges rightfully and chosen by myself as well as the grand prize winner, is going to get a custom painted featherweight. And it's going to be absolutely breathtaking. But everything that leaves the workshop is breathtaking and amazing. And while Sheila and while Susie will not get a custom painted featherweight, they will get a featherweight. But again, all of these ladies will have to share or have to cover the cost of the shipping. So Sheila will have to pay the shipping for her featherweight to come to Idaho. Susie can either travel from Minnesota to Wisconsin and when it's eventually done, pick it up at the workshop, or I can ship it to her in Minnesota. And then ultimately I'll ship a custom painted featherweight to Nancy. But I wanted to come in the spirit of Christmas and say that without all of these ladies stepping forward, there would not have been a contest. And so I wanted to honor their creative contribution that all of the judges and myself delighted in and say, you get a featherweight, you get a featherweight, you get a featherweight. I can't give you a car. I'd love to give you a car like Oprah did at that famous event, but I'm going to give each one of you ladies a featherweight. And again, it won't be ready by Christmas, but accept it in the spirit of Christmas as a special gift for you stepping forward and making this contest possible. I wouldn't have chosen this path if we had more than 3 entries, but we ended up with only 3 entries, and that made or break either, you know what I'm saying? That made the contest possible is what I want to try to say. So let's keep an eye on this, because eventually, after I get through this long line of other machines, I'm going to focus my efforts on preparing these 3 very special featherweights, one that will be custom painted, one that will be, and the other 2 that will be very, very lovely, but they're not going to be custom painted. So if you ladies have any questions about that, reach out to me after the live stream. We can talk more about it. But I just wanted to take this path. I know that I share the same heart as the judges, and when they had to cast their votes, when you choose a grand prize winner, even though it's an honor to be a second runner up or third runner up, those people don't get something like a featherweight. And so I wanted to do things differently. And I apologize to the leadership team for dropping this whammy on you, but hopefully it's a good whammy. So, pointing at Sheila out in Idaho, you get a featherweight. Pointing at Susie in Minnesota, you get a featherweight. And pointing at Nancy, wherever she is, I have no idea, you get a featherweight. So I'm going to end the live stream now, unless I forgot to cover something else. And we're going to move forward with our Tuesday. Thank you to the moderating team, the leadership team that has been out there in the trenches during this live stream, being welcoming hostesses and hosts, and also kind of keeping an eye on things for me as I, was doing all kinds of things over here. Thank you to the authors as well. Thank you to the authors for bringing your time and talent. Again, as long as it took me to read Nancy's creative piece, can you imagine how long it took Nancy to write a beautiful piece like that? Can you imagine how long it took Sheila out in Idaho to write the beautiful piece she did about Clarissa, and Susie to write the beautiful piece that she did about the news flash and those events as well? So it's such an honor to have all of you as part of the Cow Country family. And I chose the path that I did to bring honor to these great authors that took time and put their lives on pause and said, I'm going to enter this contest. And because I did, this contest is now a possibility. Again, if any one of these authors had taken a step back and said, I don't have time, we wouldn't be doing this live stream today. So again, thank you to these great authors and the talent that they brought to the great pieces they submitted. And again, for emphasis, and Oprah, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me, Oprah. I'm going to do it again. Susie in Minnesota, you get a featherweight. Sheila out in Idaho, you get a featherweight. And Nancy, you get a featherweight. Take care, everybody. God bless you. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Congratulations to Nancy and Sheila and Susie. And I'm really excited about the near future when you'll all receive a featherweight from the workshop. So God bless. Take care. Thanks again to the moderating team. And stay tuned for other live streams coming your way.